Good evening, ladies and gents. This is Dethgod, and I'm going to go over my PvP Commando build. Now, this build is set up for a pre-patch, before they nerf the damage further. They went from no cap to 190, and now it's at 110. So this is more or less a legacy build. I'm going to be doing some tweaking because you just really don't have to be doing as much damage as this build is going to be putting out. However, I decided to go run along with this one and put out a video. People have been asking me for build advice, and I'm going to put this one out for this build just to satisfy some questions, maybe some curiosities, and just have some fun with it. I'm going to be putting out at least 2 more videos besides this one for my other 2 main PvP characters, but this is my main one. I would say it's my most effective. Commando is really the meta right now, as far as putting out as much damage as possible from the furthest range possible. So most of the top guys that are out there doing the PvP stuff in Fallout 76 are going to be running a Commando build. So without further ado, we're going to go into each one of my perk cards and the mentality behind it. And as always, any kind of questions, hit me up on PSN or in the comment section. It's all good. I'm fairly reachable. When I can get to you with the questions and the answers, I'll hit you back. So we're going into strength. So I got 3 strength, and the 1 perk that is in strength is going to be Barbarian. And the reason for that is just because it adds damage resistance. Now you might be asking yourself, why do you even have any extra strength besides the normal 1 on a rifle character? And that's because of the synergy that Barbarian has with other perks and other mutations that are in this game. So for example, I've got Radical, which is going to be up to 5 more strength the more you're ratted out. And if you're doing a fully bloodied build, nerd rage kicking in, etc., that is really going to help the damage resistance by adding that extra 5 strength. Also, herd mentality is giving you extra strength. So all that stuff is just stacking up, and then every bit of strength that you get, that's more damage resistance that Barbarian is giving you. Now going into the bread and butter of the Commando build, that is of course perception. So we've got all the different commandos maxed out because this is a maximum damage build. I'll also have tank killer. This is necessary because of the stagger as well as the armor penetration. So even though I don't personally use anti-armor rifles as of now, you're still getting that armor penetration from this one, from the magazine as well. I use a stinging magazine. So all that stuff that's adding up and giving you just extra punch and even more damage. Concentrated fire. So a lot of people are not really VATS aware for PvP. And if you're going to let me put you in VATS, I might as well do the most devastating amount of damage possible and really punish you for not being stealthy. And honestly, with this build, if you get somebody in VATS and they're within, medium to close range, even pretty far range sometimes, you're going to be able to put them down fairly quickly. Now, some things I'm going to be looking into for the future, maybe swapping out some of the maxed out commandos for less of a level of commando, and swapping out things like ground pounder, which is great for, since they nerfed the drum magazine, for example, you're going to want to be able to reload that smaller magazine faster. Long shot is great for when you're actually having to aim at people far away, because it's giving your weapons damage basically more range until that damage is dropping off, and as well as more accuracy down that scope. Some other stuff you can look at is maybe the sniper perk. I don't have any right now. That's going to give you more control of that breath hold. Going into the endurance, we've got 9 endurance, which is fairly high for a bloodied build. People might say, hey, you're bloodied anyway, one shot is going to kill you, and that's just not true. So the more health you have, just because you're only using a small percentage of it, you know, around 20% for this particular build, more is still more, and you don't die until your HP is gone. So to have more is better. Now don't go too crazy with this. I wouldn't recommend really Life Giver at this point, but it would be viable, just because it would make you harder to kill. So I've got Ironclad. Sometimes I swap that out for Rejuvenated for the extra HP and AP regen. We've got Adamantium Skeleton 3, which is, in my opinion, a must-have for really any build that is not going to be in power armor, because there's too many people out there that are doing PvP with the limb crippling perks, you know, such as Tormentor, such as One Gun Army, etc. And if you don't have this, your limbs are going to get crippled, and it's going to be a bad day for you, and you'll probably die. We've got Fireproof right now. Now, Fireproof's kind of debatable. For example, I run a dense mod on my torso armor piece, which mitigates a good amount of explosive damage. However, I have the Fireproof on there just because I like to have extra insurance against those explosive weapons. Now, people are moving more towards a faster fire as opposed to an explosive weapon. However, the explosive weapons rather are still out there. You know, they've been just duped to infinity, so everybody and their mom has them. It's not going to hurt you to have Fireproof on, especially if you do not have a dense torso mod. And as I said before, we've got Radical specifically to stack on with the Barbarian. For the future, I'm probably going to be running higher health, and I might not even have Radical anymore for the future. But for this build, it works perfectly, synergizes with Barbarian, and just gives you more strength, which is nice for carrying stuff, and on the odd chance that I'm actually busting out the Power Fist on this character and going to town melee to save some ammo. Going into Charisma, that was really one of the dump stats for this build. Now, there's a lot of great Charisma perks. However, for this one, you know, you have to choose which perks you want, and sometimes some of the special stats really get just torn apart, and Charisma is one of them. So what I did keep was Strange in Numbers. I do have Mutations. I am always playing with another player, usually my wife, who also has Mutations, and almost everybody that you're going to be playing with at PvPs is going to have Mutations, so those effects are just stronger when you have Strange in Numbers. If you run in a team at all, I would definitely recommend Strange in Numbers to help your Mutations out. If you don't have Mutations, get them. I'm also running Tenderizer 1. Now, even if you have higher Charisma and can put Tenderizer 3, I do not recommend it. I recommend keeping that at 1, because you just get diminishing returns for this particular perk the more of a level you get for Tenderizer. So Tenderizer 1, that's 5% more damage, and if you see on here, if you get the higher levels, you're really kind of wasting your perk space, because it's just one more percentage. Just my opinion. I mean, yes, you would be doing more raw damage, but as you're going to see going forward, the raw damage really is not as important anymore. Now, you could swap it out for Suppressor, which I do often, but for right now, I'm showing you kind of like my pure damage build, and I've got Nerd Rage and everything kicking in for it. Speaking of Nerd Rage, we've got Nerd Rage, which is the sole perk for Intelligence. So Intelligence being another dump stat for this build, and really the only viable perk for this build, besides maybe First Aid. But for a bloody build, you're not going to really need First Aid, because one stim pack is going to take care of you. Going forward with higher health, I might actually be switching this out. But Nerd Rage, even if you're running high health, is still good. It can save you from the cusp of death and let you bounce back from it. So going into Agility, that's the other maxed out stat. And first things first, Action Boy is going to help you replenish those AP points, which is going to synergize with dodgy. And I'm going to get to dodgy at the end, because that is really, I'd say, the most important perk point for the agility tree. We got covert operative, so in the PvP arena nowadays, you're going to need to be crouched, and most of the time, if you're crouching far enough away from your opponent, you're going to be getting that sneak attack damage, and I figured why not do as much damage as possible. So 2.5% instead of, or 2.5 times the damage as opposed to just the regular 2 times damage. We've got evasive, so same mentality as barbarian, just giving you that extra damage resistance. Figured, hey, it's already super high, might as well have that extra damage resistance that goes along with it. Sneak, that's kind of an iffy perk along with adrenaline. Sneak I don't even think works for at least adventure mode. PvP, like, you're gonna see the red dot, I would say, almost no matter what, depending on perception, etc. I don't think your sneaking card is gonna help you much, but it's there. I had to fill it with something. Now, escape artist is actually important in my opinion, and from the tests I've seen done and done myself, it'll help basically break the vats of your opponent and keep people from vatsing on you as much, especially if you're crouched and with a silenced weapon. You know, if you have a suppressor on your weapon. Adrenaline, just for the extra damage that you're doing, especially in a big fight. We get into a lot of big wars in TSF, and so per kill you're just stacking up that damage. So dodgy is the most important perk card in the agility tree, and you're going to be avoiding 30% of the incoming damage. Now, this eats up your AP a lot, especially with the faster fires, and really even this doesn't save you for long if you're going against another good PvP build. But against maybe your average build, or someone that really doesn't know exactly what they're doing, or especially food builds, this is the type of stuff that's going to make you, get that hate mail like, hey, why can't I kill you, you're cheating, you're hacking, etc. Dodgy is really important. I recommend it fully. And then finally, luck. We've got 9 points in luck. A lot of people raise it higher and they're really vats crit oriented. I, however, am not. These 3 perks that I'm going to show you is what I recommend for from this type of build. Now, yeah, you can have, the better criticals, you can get the other, critical attack perks, but there's too many good people out there that you're just not going to be able to reliably vats on. So with all of those perks spent into all those vats type of things, it's really like a diminishing return type of thing, as opposed to switching out the stuff to help out your free aim and your damage on those type of people. So we got Bloody Mess, which is just great all around. It's probably my highest recommended luck perk, because it's just giving you more damage no matter what you're using. 15% more damage, you can't go wrong with it. We've also got Serendipity, which for a bloodied build is absolutely essential. It goes right along with Dodgy for your defense. Serendipity and Dodgy for a bloodied build, that's the stuff that's keeping you alive. Obviously, while below 30% health, you're gaining a almost half chance to avoid damage. So that's another thing that's really going to be saving your butt. We've also got Class Freak. So with Class Freak, any mutation that you have, it's not really going to matter the negatives too bad, because Class Freak is mitigating a lot of that stuff. So personally, I have every mutation on this character. You might be looking at my builds, my luck perks, and say, hey, why don't you have starch genes on? Well, I don't have starch genes on because I'm not trying to keep a specific mutation set. I have all of them, and Class Freak really mitigates enough of the negative effects that I don't feel a need to keep starch genes on, and I can reallocate those 2 points of luck elsewhere and make it just that much better. So that's going to be it for the build portion of this video, and we're going to start getting into the gear. So for the gear, alright y'all, now we're going to go into the equipment section of this this build video. we're going into the weapons first, and as you're going to see, everything is bloodied for this bloodied build. Makes sense, right? We'll start off with the main three. We've got my bloodied faster fire rate handmade, which is really the bread and butter of what I'm going to be using. The faster fires is really the most effective right now in my opinion, and the handmade is just a good all-around weapon. You're going to find almost everybody that PvP is seriously using a handmade of some kind, and especially a faster fire handmade. Who we have over here? We've got Gribble. Look at him, ladies and gents. Alright. So my other one, my longer range weapon, that's going to be my bloodied explosive handmade. And I've got the short scope on it. I used to have the medium scope, however I like the short scope a little bit better. Even though it's for a longer range engagement, I feel that the short scope is just better for the type of ranges of the average fight that I'm getting into. So a little bit more distance than my faster fire, which I just have the reflex scope on. But for a longer range engagement, I got that little short scope on. So we've also got the bloodied explosive laser rifle. I don't like busting that out first. It's kind of a cheesy weapon. It's the way that it does damage is kind of wonky. And if you still have the burners on it, you know, like the beta wave emitter, you're going to be making your opponents immortal a lot of the time, which is never a good thing. But it's there, you know, it's a legacy weapon. You're not going to be able to get it dropped. However, during the last like duping craze, a lot of people made a lot of these, so you're still going to be able to obtain one of these if you really wanted one. However, I would recommend focusing more on like a good handmade before you get anything else. Starting at the top, I kind of got just different type of weapons that I've been acquiring. Call this one 3 Mile Island. It's a bloody explosive radium rifle, and it's cool because even if just the explosive part hits somebody, it's still going to be doing that radiation damage. So it's an interesting weapon. We've got a good bloodied explosive Gauss rifle. I'm not normally a semi-automatic weapons user. However, this one does so much damage that you're still going to be able to do work even without full rifleman perks. It's a really damaging weapon, and I know a few dudes that are still running the semis that are using Gauss rifles, and it's really packs a punch. We've got a bloodied explosive SMG 10mm. This is more for farming, but it does do work in PvP as well because the perks for this thing are stacking up with all the Commando stuff. So you might not think that an SMG should be using automatic rifle perks, but it does, and it works, and it's pretty effective, although not so much as, say, a handmade. I'll run around with a gamma gun. Now this one is just a 1-star bloodied one. However, especially since they buffed up the damage on these things, that plus the radiation damage really makes it so that it's an extremely efficient killer of other bloodied builds, and really of most people. It's going to be stacking on that radiation damage, which is a big thing, especially with the deep dish and the signal repeater. There's also a better grip available. I just don't have it on this one. I'm going to probably eventually get a better gamma gun, so I haven't really worried about it so far. Let's see. Got the old power fist. Now this is not a melee character at all. However, this one's a faster swing, reduced weight, bloodied power fist, and it still does excellent damage, especially with that puncturing mod. And it is reduced weight, so I'm able to carry it around easily and not at the expense of anything else. You know, it's only taking up like a pound. We got the bloodied faster fire rate pipe rifle. Now, don't underestimate this weapon. Like, yeah, it's not as good as a handmade, but it'll do work even in PvP. Its real limitation is the small magazine capacity. Other than that, man, it's able to stack on the short recon scope, which is excellent. I do primarily use this for farming because of the abundant 38 ammo, but I've used it in PvP, like real PvP, and it's done enough work to make it viable in that as well. And really, that is going to be it for the weapons section. We're going to go ahead to the apparel. Obviously, you're going to want to get the backpack and the armor-plated mod, or I think it's called insulated, the one for energy damage. You're going to want that stuff because it's stacking on just extra damage resistance and some carry weight as well. You're going to sacrifice some carry weight, which is the main thing for PvP effectiveness. You don't want to be worrying about carry weight too much, to be honest. Like, if you can sacrifice carry weight for damage resistance or damage, you're going to want to do that. Going for perks or for equipment as well. So, don't put deep pocketed on. You notice my stuff's all ultra light, and that because that's giving you more AP for that dodgy. So right here we've got a Cavalier's Assassin right arm with action point refresh. So the action point refresh is going to be key for that same reason, to help that dodgy recover. So basically, you notice you're getting hit and all your AP is getting drained. Back off into some cover, let your AP regen really quick, and with a bunch of powered pieces like this, your AP is going to snap back really quickly, and then you're back in the fight. So I've got, what else we got here? I switch out this leg as well. You're going to need at least one good chameleon piece for the high level PvP stuff. You're going to want to be able to go invisible once you sneak, and you're going to be sneaking almost all the time in high level PvP. I know this is a robot leg, it's not like the high Gucci stuff, but hey, it's been working for me, and it's got great legendary effects. So another piece I've been running and experimenting with is a life-saving piece, specifically an urban scout armor piece. Now, I still have the standard mod on it, haven't gotten like the reinforced one yet, but it's got great perks. It's got that powered perk to it, as well as life-saving. So this thing will pick you up more often than not. I recommend having one just to mess around with, at least for adventure mode PvP, where you can keep all your stim packs on you, because you need a stim pack while you're using one of these. So we've got the Sentinel Assassin Trapper left arm, so that's another thing too. Same as some of the other pieces you'll see. The Sentinel effect, which really doesn't matter as much nowadays, because you're always going to be crouched, always going to be moving, so you're not going to get a chance to really have that Sentinel effect take much effect. But you got that -8% from players, 75% chance of that, and then the action point refresh is great. Alright, and this piece is an awesome one. It's another Sentinel Assassin piece, taking away that damage from players. It's powered. The metal piece itself is giving you a lot of damage resistance. You can see I've got the dense mod on there, and that is going to be preventing a lot of the explosive damage. Alright, I've also got some unyielding pieces, and for this build, unyielding is great. It stacks up your stats, and I know some guys are running full unyielding, and it really makes the stats super crazy. So right now I've got just this one on. I don't have my chameleon piece on. But say if you throw on your other one, you're really going to be stacking up that damage resistance, and you can see over 550 just ballistic damage, and getting close to 400 energy resistance. So really that's going to be it. as far as my gear goes, the weapons and armor. And I hope that you have enjoyed watching this stuff, and hopefully that answers some questions that you might have had, and hopefully gets your mind going to some more questions. And like I said, feel free to ask me. Take care.
Raiding supplies here or don't. I don't care. It's dangerous to go alone. It's dangerous to go in groups. It's just dangerous out there, so stock up here.
Test. Test. Testing, testity test. Testicles. Test. Testing. Specifically this perk, Barbarian. So going over to Perception, obviously that is going to be maxed out for a rifle type character for the maximum amount of, vats, and just the maximum amount of perk ability. Oh no, server's not responding. Great. Ground Pounder, no, I didn't have that. Fuck, man, I gotta do